Hi, welcome to another episode of Future Ledger. In 2011, a 28-year-old founder sat across the table from Steve Jobs. Jobs wasn't there to invest. He was there to buy the company. And when the founder said no, Jobs told him something that would haunt the next 15 years of the business. That what he'd built wasn't a product. It was a feature. Today, that company is worth a fraction of what it once was. Its headcount has shrunk by a third. And its own CEO recently admitted the story people tell about it has turned, in his words, super negative. This is the story of Dropbox, the app that invented a habit for hundreds of millions of people and then watched the giants it inspired quietly swallow its reason to exist. It's easy to forget that the cloud used to be a genuinely hard problem. Before 2008, moving a file between your laptop and your desktop meant a USB stick, an email to yourself, or hoping the Office server didn't crash. Dropbox didn't just solve that problem. It made trusting a stranger's server with your private files feel completely normal. That single shift in behavior is the quiet infrastructure underneath everything we now take for granted. Google Docs syncing mid-sentence. Your phone photos appearing on your laptop. A company's entire workforce editing the same spreadsheet from 6 time zones at once. So when a company that invented that habit starts shrinking, it's worth asking why. Because the answer says something about what happens to every business built on being first. The founding story is almost too tidy to be true, except that it is. In 2007, a Boston college student boarded a bus to New York and realized 4 hours from home that he'd once again forgotten the one flash drive he needed for work. For most people, that's an annoying Tuesday. For this particular engineering student, it became an obsession. Somewhere on that highway, he started sketching the outline of software that would sync a folder across every computer he owned, automatically without a USB stick ever entering the picture. He teamed up with a fellow MIT student, and together they got into Y Combinator, the startup accelerator that would later launch companies like Airbnb and Stripe. But there was a problem. The idea was invisible. You can't screenshot syncing. So instead of a slide deck, they made a short screen-recorded video, dropped in a few in-jokes for the tech crowd watching, and quietly uploaded it. By the next morning, the waiting list had gone from a few thousand names to tens of thousands. They hadn't launched a company yet. They'd launched a want. What followed was one of the fastest consumer growth curves Silicon Valley had ever recorded. The mechanism was almost embarrassingly simple. Invite a friend, and you both got extra storage space, free. No ad spend, no sales team, just people doing the marketing for the company, one referral link at a time. The numbers reportedly moved so fast that the small founding team started printing out user count milestones and taping them to the office wall. And then, when they ran out of wall, the ceiling. Within about a year and a half of opening to the public, the user base had gone from roughly 100,000 people to several million. Funding followed the users. By the early 2000s, the company was valued at $10 billion, an astonishing number for what was, at its core, still just a folder on your computer that quietly copied itself somewhere else. And then came the meeting that would define the next decade. In 2009, and again a couple of years later, the company found itself in a room with Steve Jobs. Apple wanted to buy it. According to accounts of the meeting, Jobs made his pitch. The founders declined, and Jobs reportedly told them, bluntly, that what they'd built wasn't a company. It was a feature. He wasn't entirely wrong, and that's what makes the line sting 15 years later. Within a few years, Apple, Google, and Microsoft had each folded a version of the same idea directly into the operating systems already sitting on a billion devices. You no longer needed to install anything or think about syncing at all. It just happened. Quietly. Inside the phone you already owned. The company had won the argument that cloud storage mattered. It just hadn't guaranteed that people would keep paying a stranger for something their phone now did automatically for free. Here's the part most retrospectives skip. The company didn't just survive the giants moving in, it kept growing for years afterward, went public in 2018, and became genuinely, reliably profitable. The real story isn't a single dramatic collapse. It's something slower and, in some ways, more uncomfortable. A company quietly trading growth for cash. Its revenue growth rate fell from around a quarter each year at its 2018 public debut, to single digits by the early 2020s, to essentially flat, and then in 2025, it slipped into outright decline for the first time in its history. Rather than pouring that cash into reinvention, the company spent 2024 and 2025 doing something that would have been unthinkable to its founders on that bus back in 2007. It borrowed roughly $1 billion against a $2 billion credit facility, largely to buy back its own stock, while cutting roughly a third of its workforce across multiple rounds of layoffs. It wasn't dying. It was being quietly optimized for shareholders, not for growth. So what does the company actually look like today? Smaller, leaner, and, by most financial measures, healthier per employee than it's ever been. Headcount has fallen by roughly a third from its 2022 peak, down to just over 2,000 people, its lowest in nearly a decade. And yet revenue per employee has climbed past $1 million a year, a figure most software companies would envy. The strategy now is what its own CEO has called a shift toward harvest mode. Retire the side projects that didn't scale, a password manager, a document signing tool, a forms business bought a few years earlier, and place a smaller number of bets on artificial intelligence, including a new tool designed to search and organize files across all of a user's other apps, not just its own storage. It's a company that finally admits, in its own earnings calls, that its core business is no longer growing. The question the whole industry is quietly asking is whether harvest mode is a stable plateau or a controlled descent. Every mature company eventually faces the same fork: reinvent or manage the decline gracefully. Right now, the honest answer is that nobody, probably not even the people running the company, knows for certain which path this one is on. The bull case is that a smaller, profitable business with a loyal user base and a genuine cash engine can fund one or two real swings at reinvention through AI, the same way an aging platform sometimes finds a second act. The bear case is simpler and less kind, that this becomes a slow, well-managed wind down, a company that gets acquired, absorbed, or quietly forgotten, the way so many category-defining pioneers eventually are. Either way, the next chapter probably won't be written by another viral bus ride idea. It'll be written in boardrooms, earnings calls, and a handful of AI product bets. Far less romantic than where this story started, but just as consequential. 15 years ago, a forgotten flash drive turned into a habit shared by hundreds of millions of people. It was never really about storage. It was about trust. Trusting that a stranger's server somewhere would hold on to the things that mattered to you. Steve Jobs was right that it was a feature. What he underestimated was how long it would take everyone else to build that feature well enough that people stopped noticing the company that invented it in the first place. Maybe that's the real lesson buried in this story. Sometimes the biggest sign you've changed the world isn't that your company becomes a household name forever. It's that the thing you invented becomes so ordinary, so invisible, that nobody remembers to thank you for it. Thanks for watching this episode of Future Ledger. If you want to understand how today's giants are quietly rewriting tomorrow's rules, subscribe, because the next ledger entry is already being written.